In the shattered streets of Gaza City, the air is thick with dust and absence. A family home that once stood proudly now lies in silent ruin, its rooms indistinguishable beneath plateaus of concrete and rubble. For many Palestinians returning to the enclave in the wake of the ceasefire, the search is not just for structures, but for the missing, loved ones swallowed by wartime devastation. Take the case of Ahmed al-Safodi. He is the eldest son in his family and carries what he calls an unbearable weight. I only want to retrieve their bodies from the rubble in order to give them a proper burial. It's my responsibility as their eldest son, he said. His house was hit by bombing. His family vanished beneath its remains. He now confronts the ruins of their home, sifting through what once sheltered their lives. On one level, the work falls to the exhausted crews of the Gaza Civil Defense. They descend into collapsed buildings and streets strewn with rubble, tasked with recovering human remains and restoring some measure of dignity through burial. But the scale of the task is overwhelming. We conducted our search with the limited and decaying equipment that we have. We have asked the world to bring in heavy equipment in order to recover the remains, but we have more than 10,000 missing under the rubble. Without heavy equipment, we can't reach them. Every hour that passes, hope fades, a civil defense officer explained. The numbers underscore the desperation. A recent Guardian investigation estimated that around 10,000 bodies remain trapped beneath an estimated 60 million tons of debris. Another report placed the missing at more than 11,000, with belief that many more are unregistered. And human rights monitors warned of thousands of dead bodies still missing under the rubble and no adequate international action to assist recovery. The UNDP emphasises that even the clearance of debris will take years. One spokesperson said, "Eventually, we hope that access can be provided, that we can bring in some of the heavy equipment that are needed for this massive task as well." It will be a big number that will be required, heavy infrastructure like loaders, like trucks and other equipment. What emerges from these voices is a ledger of loss and a catalogue of obstacles. A home is more than bricks and mortar. It is identity, memory, the archive of a family's life. When a home becomes rubble, every stone carries a story, every inch of dust a possibility of discovery. Ahmed stands amid the ruins, surrounded by fragments of what was. He is not simply surveying destruction, he is confronting absence. He retraces the rooms where his siblings played, where his parents hosted loved ones, where futures were planned. Now, these spaces hide what remains, waiting to be found. What was once a city of life is now a graveyard of memories, one rescue worker said, as though naming the transformation of entire neighbourhoods into sites of memory rather than living. In the days following the ceasefire, returning families began the slow, gutting task of hunting for bodies. They are doing so often without equipment, fuel or support. One father described removing his own rubble by hand, using spades, sledgehammers and bare hands. The Civil Defense Agency said it had begun to recover corpses. Just one small victory in an ocean of losses. They face existential questions. Are the missing alive or dead? Where are the remains? How will they be honoured? And who will carry out the painstaking retrieval when the terrain is strewn with the risk of unexploded ordnance and entire structures that collapsed in layers of concrete and steel? In many cases, the assumption is that remains will never be found. One family returned to the site of a blast, scanned the rubble, uncovered nothing. It's as if he vanished. The house and everything around it had turned to rubble, one brother said of his sibling. Meanwhile, the machinery that might expedite the work remains absent or destroyed. The civil defence officer's plea, "We can't reach them," is echoed in multiple reports of lack of access, fuel, cranes, loaders, fuel and safe routes into collapsed buildings. Fuel and functional equipment are keys to enabling recovery. Without them, families wait and hope fades hour by hour. In the rubble of Gaza, there is also the weight of time. Debris degrades, remains deteriorate, records vanish. The longer it takes to retrieve bodies, the less chance there is of dignified burial. One report noted the wreckage of buildings simply pulverized people, making full recovery sometimes impossible. For many returning Gazans, the mission is as much about honoring the dead as about closure. Families feel that recovering the bodies of their martyrs is a way to honor them and preserve their souls, said one civil defense worker. To bury the dead is to say, "You mattered, you were here." A father exhales among the dust. "My heart is broken because my brother has not been buried yet. Even a single bone would allow us to lay him to rest and feel some relief. The hope of recovery is intertwined with the larger humanitarian and reconstruction challenge. The UNDP and other agencies have emphasized that before rebuilding can truly begin, the mountains of rubble must be cleared. One report estimates 55 million tons of debris. At the same time, access remains constrained. Some heavy machinery delivered to Gaza has been destroyed or rendered inactive, and border crossings, fuel supplies, and security conditions all limit large-scale operations. In April 2025, for example, an attack destroyed bulldozers previously supplied for rubble clearance, further complicating recovery efforts. Even as families return, many neighborhoods remain inaccessible or unsafe. The destruction of vital services, roads, water, sewage, power, means that the physical environment adds further indignity to the loss. Municipalities themselves report that there is not a street, neighborhood, or alley in the Gaza Strip that has not been partially or completely destroyed by the Israeli war machine. Thus, this is not simply a situation of individual homes lost. It is a collapse of the environment of daily life. Families search for bodies, but they also search for traces of identity, kitchen tiles, furniture, photographs, the personal artifacts that anchor memory. In the absence of these, grief multiplies, and the timeline is daunting. The UN reports that clearing the debris and creating conditions for reconstruction could take years, if not decades. Consider the story of the al-Safodi family as emblematic of thousands. Their home once sheltered laughter and life. Now it blankets bodies and unanswered questions. Ahmed stands amid the concrete slabs, reminding himself of rooms that no longer exist. He speaks of responsibility, of duty, of hope, but above all, of absence. Other families speak of the moment of return, the burst of emotion when they first walk back into their neighborhood, the shock of seeing once familiar buildings reduced to shards, the horror of digging by hand, day after day, hoping for a sign. One mother describes the moment she uncovered fragments of her child's clothing and knew that closure would be partial at best. Another father describes burying remains in a garden when cemeteries were destroyed. Imagine a father who worked as an ambulance driver, known for his strength and patience, gone. A son sifts shards of skull and bone to bury him. "My father did not know fear and was always optimistic," said one child of his father. The scale of the missing is almost ungraspable. Thousands of lives unaccounted for beneath the rubble. Some estimates place the number at 14,500 or more. For each missing person, there is a family suspended in time, living without answers. And for each meter of collapsed concrete, there is the physical promise of recovery that remains unfulfilled for now. One civil defense crew described their equipment: simple tools, shovels, sledgehammers, bare hands. The equipment we use is very outdated. We need tractors, claw machines, and huge cranes to lift the rubble of the buildings. Another rescuer. At first, we are focusing on collecting the corpses lying in the streets to preserve what remains of them, especially with the presence of stray dogs that have been attacking bodies. And an anguished brother. We were hoping to find something that proves he was there. We really need heavy machinery to search under the rubble, but these machines are unavailable. In Gaza, the task is not only about recovery, it is about dignity, remembrance, and the last act of humanity. The rescue worker explained, "Families feel that recovering the bodies of their martyrs is a way to honor them, and it reassures them that their loved ones truly became martyrs and are no longer alive." Every hour that passes adds risk. The remains degrade, the environment becomes more hazardous, the chance of meaningful recovery dim. Without heavy equipment, rubble may remain unmoved, bodies unrecovered, and families forever without closure. The call for heavy machinery is urgent. The UNDP says that only once large-scale loaders, trucks, and infrastructure are brought in can the task proceed. And yet, in many places, the border crossings remain restricted, fuel is scarce, and security is fragile. In one turning phrase, what was once a city of life is now a graveyard of memories. That image captures the transformation not just of buildings, but of entire communities. For the families returning to their destroyed homes, the task is a mixture of hope and grief. They search not just for bodies, but for meaning. They sift through dust, hoping for a fragment of the past. They want to lay their loved ones to rest. And so, in the shadow of destruction, there is also resilience. There is the eldest son who refuses to surrender. There is the father who returns daily to the same pile of concrete. There are civil defence crews who continue to dig despite the odds. But the reality remains stark. Thousands remain missing. The machinery needed for recovery is not yet in place. The scale of reconstruction looms large. In the wake of war, in a place where homes once stood by the sea and now stand in ruin, the deepest work is often invisible: the retrieval of bodies, the burial of the dead, the laying to rest of memory and absence. In Gaza, amidst the rubble, every stone is a question. One broken tile, one piece of twisted rebar. Each might hold a story, a life, a trace. Families want the chance to say goodbye. They want the chance to bury, to mourn, to move forward. The assistance needed is vast, from heavy equipment to fuel, from secure access to safety for rescuers. The international community has pledged billions to rebuild, yet even before the rebuild can begin, the search must continue, the missing must be found, the dead must be honoured. As one rescue worker said, every hour that passes, hope fades. In Gaza's streets of shattered dreams, hope persists by the shovelful, by the hand of a son, by the unwavering weight of remembrance. And until the last stone is lifted, the city remains not fully at rest, its graveyard of memories not fully silent.